of Digital and Social Media Marketing Week, brought to you by Zim Digital and Social Media Awards. My name is Kudzanai Thondhlana. I am a business developer, marketer, media practitioner, and salesperson. I am affiliated with the Creative Natives Africa and also with the Zim Digital and Social Media Awards themselves. And my presentation today will be on the importance of branding. As I mentioned in the promo video, for those of you who have been following our little promos, I mentioned that the reason why this presentation is of vast importance for the vast majority to probably all of us is no matter who you are, no matter what you do, as an individual or in your business settings, everyone is a brand. And whether or not you're taking an active role in cultivating it, or you're taking the backseat and letting your brand free fall, either way, your brand is being perceived by people out there. And whether you're actively cultivating or you're passively involved in it, the brand is out there. So we want to help you think around what your brand is and how you can cultivate a better brand and a more viable brand, because at the end of the day, we're all in business to create viability and sustainability. So that's what my presentation will be about. Next slide. Great. So we're going to start off with definitions, because that is the reasonable starting point for any conversation around anything. So for us, as we delve into what branding is or what a brand is, we want to understand how it's defined. And there's a lot of definitions across the internet, in textbooks and so forth. But the definitions that I chose are more suited to how I like to see branding and brands in general. And for me, what a brand is, the most powerful statement I heard about defining a brand is basically a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And that allows us to think in a particular way about what a brand is, in that we spend a lot of time thinking about forcing our brand down people's throats and cultivating that forcefully, whereas this is that definition reveals that the brand custodian isn't us, but it's our audience. So when we think branding, we need to think in terms of how our audience is receiving what we're giving them, rather than trying to force feed them a one-way traffic kind of thing. We want the audience, as the custodian of our brands, to perceive us in the way that we want to perceive it. And once you start thinking of your brand in that way, how am I cultivating the perception of my audience? How am I building that relationship with my audience through what I'm giving them, through the various aspects of what my brand entails? And am I giving a positive brand impression at the end of it? Because the whole idea of what a brand is the feeling, the emotional connection between you and your target audience, and you want that to be positive. So ultimately, everything that you do as a brand, the ultimate goal is to create a positive brand perception and a positive brand relationship between you and your target audience. So again, the definition I prefer is what your brand is what people say about you or your company when you're not in the room. Jay Bear, who is a favorite of mine, defines it as the art of aligning what you want people to think about your company or your personal brand and what people actually think about it. So essentially there's the audience and there's you. You want to be perceived in a certain way. The audience is perceiving you in a certain way. That's the brand. Branding is the art of aligning that. So you want to align how you want to be seen and perceived as a brand to how people actually are perceiving your brand. And that's the art of branding. Another definition that I like is from Ashley Franklin. And she says, the brand is the sum total of how someone perceives a particular organization or person, and branding is about shaping that perception. So again, when you think of the art of branding, when you think of the art of pushing your brand, think in terms of shaping perceptions, how you want to be perceived by your target audience. At the end of the day, the target audience really determines and is the custodian of your brand, and all you can do is try to ensure that in what you're putting out as a brand ensures that the custodians of the brand, that is the audience, have a positive brand perception of what your brand is. Next slide. So we want to get into some elements of what your brand identity will be. Again, a brand is more than just a logo, it's more than just the colors you choose, it's more than just whether or not you have social media accounts, what uniforms your employees are wearing. These are elements of a brand, but it goes beyond that. So we need to think around what exactly is my brand identity and what are the elements that make up that brand identity. So we want to start off with your brand promise, which is critical because any brand, regardless of what field you're in, personal or business, is making a promise to their customer. Again, if we pull back to where any business relationship begins, it's you have an audience or a target market, and they have a need or a want, and you as a brand are trying to meet that need or want with whatever solutions that you're providing, be it a product, be it a service, be it anything else. So that is the starting point. So when somebody interacts with your brand, your personal brand, your company brand, the first thing that happens is a promise is made, or you as a brand are making a promise to deliver your service or your product in a particular way to them. It could be, again, maybe you're saying your brand is targeting providing a more affordable product or service solution, and that's your brand promise. We will be more affordable than most of the solutions available on the market. Or it's quality, and you're saying as a brand, because we're a premium brand, what we're communicating is we will give you luxury, we will give you quality and the highest quality of product or service, and that's communicated again through your brand, and that's the brand promise that you're making. So the brand promise essentially is you defining what your brand will deliver and how you will deliver it to meet your customers' needs or wants. So it's important for you to understand what promise is your brand making. Is it quality? Is it affordability? Is it service? And there's so many other brand promises that you can make, but these are examples, and you need to think around what your brand is offering and what promise you're making, because again, the perception at the customer level will be determined by what promise you're making and whether you're meeting that promise when they interact with your brand. Another aspect of branding or the brand is the personality. If you think of a brand, and this is more critical for organizations, as if you put a human face, and I'm sure a lot of you have been hearing about humanizing brands of late. It's one of the buzzwords in our field. Humanizing the brand means putting a human face to your business brand. And again, that's where the personality comes in. So in the same way that when you meet somebody at an event, in a room, on the street or wherever, you get a feeling of who they are when you speak to them. Are they friendly? Are they introverted? Are they funny? Are they serious? Are they intellectual? Are they a little bit more jocular in how they like to look at life? These are all aspects that you can get when you interact with someone at say the first time, and you get an inkling of what their personality is. Similarly, when somebody interacts with your brand, they want to understand what you as a brand, who you are as a brand, and what you stand for. That is your brand personality. Is the brand fun, exciting, joking, or is the brand serious, focusing on serious issues, delivering it professionally? Is it more focused on entertainment or insights? These are all aspects of what the brand personality is, and will be determined by the tone of your brand. The colors that you use also feed into communicating what your personality is. Brighter colors, of course, give a more, they communicate more entertainment-based, happy-based. Other colors can communicate, you want to focus on trust and security. Others can focus more on maybe loving of nature or freshness. It depends. So again, your brand personality is something you need to think through, and that will feed into how you communicate, the tone that you use, the look and feel of your brand. So that's a very important aspect of the branding. Positioning is how your brand is perceived in the minds of the consumer. So you want to make sure you're positioning your brand accordingly. So for example, if your brand promises affordability, right, and you want to communicate that fact, your brand personality will also feed into that affordability aspect. Maybe your messaging is quick, focuses on price aspects. It might be fun, frivolous. So maybe your colors are also communicating that same thing. When it comes to the positioning, you want to ensure that you are positioning correctly in the minds of the consumer. That when the consumer hears about your brand name or comes across any of your brand touch points, that the aspect of affordability is communicated. So for example, some might even put it in the name. You might find a company, for example, called the Bargain Bonanza House. And all they're saying, even in the name, is they want to be positioned in your mind as somewhere where you get bargains and bonanzas of bargains. So again, that's positioning brand positioning where that affordability aspect will filter through the various elements of your brand. So it's important for you to understand where your brand wants to be positioned in the minds, hearts, and souls of your customer. So when they interact with your brand messaging, the correct brand relationship is being developed. The last thing you want to do is for people to expect a premium experience from your brand, and yet your brand is a budget brand. Then you're miscommunicating, and your positioning is not aligned to what your brand wants to represent. Market position is similar to that, but where does your brand fit into the market? Here, you're not looking at competitive aspects. So if you're saying our brand is affordable, well, affordability is not just a standalone quality. Affordability is in consideration of what the other options in the market are. So when you say your brand is affordable, is it affordable in comparison with the competitors, with the other solutions that are out there? You need to think through where in the market your brand is fitting in. So in addition to brand positioning, where you're thinking specifically about in the minds, hearts, and souls of your customers, where are they perceiving your brand to be positioned, you also want to look at the broader market and understand the industry you're playing in. So you might assume that you're being affordable, and yet there's solutions out there that are more affordable or offer a quicker, easier, faster solution than what you're offering. So understand the industry you're in and understand what your market positioning is. Lastly, is the brand architecture, which essentially is just think of it as a system around how you're delivering your brand to your consumers. So what touch points are you using? If you have multiple brands, for example, think of your companies your fast-moving consumer goods companies that might have different brands under the umbrella body. How exactly are you defining your market segments for each brand? How exactly are you delivering and creating relationships between each brand or sub-brand and your target audience? So the architecture is you thinking through the whole system and infrastructure of what your brand is, of what elements are within your brand, and of course the market segments that you're trying to meet with your brand solutions, and ensure that you understand how you are cohesively delivering that brand messaging to your target market. Next slide. So these are some of the more specific brand elements that we want to look into. We started off by looking around let's call them the overarching ideas of what brand entails, your positioning, your architecture, your values, and so forth. But now we want to look into the particular brand element aspect. So you want to understand your target audience or your target market. That's critical to any brand. Are you, for example, focusing on, you get it a lot when you ask somebody, or clients, potential clients especially, who is this product or service targeted to? And you'll hear someone say, everyone. Even for a mass market product, there is no everyone when you're making a product. Not everyone. I am yet to meet or come across a product on earth that everybody uses. It doesn't exist. So in as much as you might be a mass product, there's certain categories or segments of people that are more suited for your product, or who demand that product more because of they're more in need of it. So you need to understand your target audience specifically. Is it women of what income, of what age, of what educational bracket? Is it men? Is it the youth? Is it school-going children? You need to understand who your specific target audience is. Or you can have various segments of your target audience and have various aspects of your product or service solution meeting different segments. So understand all that and be very, very sure and on point about who your target audience is, because that sets the tone for what the brand is. If you get your target audience wrong, that could set your business up for failure. The other aspect is your brand value. So of course, what is your brand? Again, we spoke of brand personality and people understanding who you are and what's important to you as a brand. Your values speak to that. Is ethics important? Is it customer service that's important to you? Is it maybe the world becoming a better place? Maybe going green is what's important to you as a brand. So these are all things you need to think about. What are your brand values? Because those are points of connection between you and your target audience. Again, everything feeds into developing a relationship, a viable relationship with your audience. Anything that you do regarding brand building, brand cultivation, brand engagement, everything is about cultivating that relationship with your customer. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. So your values offer a connection point for values that are important to the customers or your target audience. And if those align with the brand, with the values that you a store as a brand, then you have points of connection that can help you cultivate that relationship. You want to look at your visual identity. That's when your logos come in, your colors, your social media platforms, and the imagery that you use. And your visual identity also communicates what your brand is about and what it represents. You want to look into your visuals in general, your website and marketing materials. How do they look? How do they feel? What do they allow people to do? How do people engage with them? That's another aspect of that. Your messaging. How do you talk to your audience? What's your tone like? What kind of content are you feeding? Are you an image-based, for example, business that likes to communicate through images, or are you communicating through text-heavy, wordy articles that also could have value to a particular kind of audience? So you need to understand essentially what your messaging is and how your messaging will be received by the target audience. You want to think through your marketing touch points or the channels that you're distributing this messaging or content through. So where will your customers interact with your brand? And this could also extend to offline. So for example, if you're a business that has shop fronts or offices where people can come and meet the people behind the brand, then you need to also think through all those touch points. What kind of experience are people getting when they come to your office, or when they come to your offices, or when they meet some of your employees? You need to think through all of those aspects. Employees is another one we're touching on. So you need to also consider that employees are one of the most important brand touch points, because they carry the brand and they are the face and life of the brand. So are your employees in tune with what the brand entails, with what the brand represents? Do they themselves represent the brand well? When people meet them, are the brand values, the brand positioning, the brand architecture, is that all communicated through the employees, through what they're wearing, through how they communicate with your customers? For example, I know a hotel chain here in Zimbabwe that standardized the greeting of when you interact with the employees. So when you walk into the hotel, anybody you meet across all the numerous hotels that they have in the group, they will always start with a refreshing morning to you. So that again is thinking through the branding and thinking through how employees are carriers and custodians of the brand themselves. So you want to also, I'm not sure about standardizing greetings, but again, it shows that somebody was thinking through how employees, when they interact with the target market, how to carry that branding through in a standardized way, so people get a similar experience when they meet any one of your employees. So you also need to think through, are your employees in tune with what your messaging is, with what your brand represents, what the brand values are? So when people meet any of your employees, there isn't a discordant experience for your customers. Client service is another one, and it also touches with employees. What kind of service are you delivering post purchase, during the stage when somebody's inquiring about making a purchase? You need to think through the customer experience, because the experience is at the core of the kind of relationship you will develop with your customers. You want to think through your product or service. So the pricing also communicates something. If it's highly priced, if it's priced lower, that also communicates something. Where is it found? So how is it delivered? All these aspects feed into how your brand is perceived. You want to look through the expectations that you're setting as a brand and ensure that you're meeting them, because the quickest way to lose business is to set high expectations and deliver way below. So what you want to do is ensure that whatever expectations you're setting as a brand are expectations you can meet and exceed. Also understand what kind of story, the brand story that envelops what your brand is. So again, as you feed your customers, your target audience, that story, you're creating points of emotional connection between you and your target audience. That also feeds into the reputation that you're going to build, and the kind of actions that you're taking as a brand are all feeding into, again, all these elements are working together for what will be an overall brand experience with the customers. So a brand isn't one thing, it's all these things working in tandem, in cohesion, in conjunction, and ensuring that the consistency of the experience across all these elements is what will then become to be perceived by your customers, by your target audience as your brand. Right. So why branding? The reason why I selected the picture of that particular brand is it's a very well-recognized brand. Hollywood is not the biggest movie industry or movie hub, let me put it that way, in the world, but it is the most profitable. And that's because of the brand they've built. So you'll find Bollywood is bigger in terms of quantity of movies that are produced per year. Nollywood is bigger in terms of quantity of movies produced per year. But in terms of the margins and the returns and the incomes that these movies or content that's created in this industry, Hollywood is far and above the rest. And that's because of the branding built. Hollywood has built a big brand around big budget movies. They tell stories and they're willing to put budgets in, so the quality of their work is at the forefront of why as a brand it's a world leader in the industry that it's in. So this is why it's a very good example of why branding matters and what benefits you can derive from having a robust brand. Name recognition, just alone having that picture there. A lot of us, I haven't been there, but when I see that, I know where that is. And I'm sure that applies for a lot of you. So that name recognition is important. People might not have experienced your brand in the first person or in physical reality, but because they're experiencing your brand through the digital platforms that you're on, that name recognition, that recognition of brand, that brand recognition is cultivated if you're doing it well. Credibility, again, what your brand represents, if you're following through, setting expectations and delivering on them. So while in a year there'll be flops that Hollywood produces, you can think now the movies that have come out this year, there's a whole lot of them that have not been so well. There's quite a number of them that have been big. And if you think of the top 10 movies that have come out this year, I'm pretty sure 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, will be Hollywood produced movies, which tells you about the credibility of Hollywood and how they're cultivating that credible brand by delivering on the promise to tell stories in the best way possible. So that's something you want to think about as well. Branding is important because it builds credibility if you do it in the right way and you are meeting the expectations and the brand promises that you're setting with your customers. You can get steady flow of work because of that. So once people see that you do what you say you're going to do and they have that positive brand experience with you and you're creating and cultivating positive customer experiences, work will flow because more people want to do business with you. That ties into the rates that you're charging. So again, Hollywood isn't the biggest, but it is in terms of revenues because they can charge more for their movies, because they put bigger budgets to it. So the quality aspect of their work, and that's attached to what their brand is, can also lead to higher rates for them in terms of what they do. Cultivates customer loyalty. We are very, very loyal to Hollywood movies. I'll speak personally for me. I haven't watched a Bollywood movie this year. I'm sorry, Nigeria, I love Africa. I haven't watched a Nigerian movie this year. I have watched quite a number of Hollywood productions. Again, that shows you I am a loyal customer of Hollywood before I'm even a loyal customer of my own brothers and sisters there in Nigeria. So that again is a testament to the power of the Hollywood brand and how, because I've been consuming their content for over the years for so long, and I trust the brand Hollywood and the quality of movies it produces. I'm more partial to consuming Hollywood content than any other movie or film industry that's out there. So again, a good brand can help you cultivate customer loyalty and that emotional connection with your target market. I'm emotionally attached to Hollywood. There's quite a few shows that I follow religiously because of that. So again, understand how you're cultivating, which touch points, that emotional touch points emotions are you evoking rather in your audience. So is it excitement? Is it entertainment? Is it surprise? Is it joy? Think through what kind of emotions your content, your brand wells up or you want to evoke in your target audience, and that will help you create that emotional connection. That will actually lead to your viability and sustainability of your business. It motivates purchase. That needs no explanation. A good brand relationship between you and your customer will motivate your customer not only to purchase themselves but to refer you to other people. Word of mouth is big right now, and as long as you're giving people a positive brand experience, people will refer your brand to other people. It attracts new customers. Again, like we said, referrals would be one way. New people interacting with your business. Those are all aspects of people who can benefit from a positive brand experience and how you can benefit from a positive brand experience. Employee satisfaction is one that's overlooked, but a good brand starts from within. So if your employees are unhappy, it's going to filter through to how they engage with customers. So you need to understand that employee satisfaction is a big part of what your brand is. Because I remember we were on a radio show not so long ago, and the presenter was talking about how she was in a fast food outlet, and she was mentioning the fact that the reports from the annual reports from this company had come out, and the company was doing well, revenues were up, profits were up. And she shared this with the lady at the front, that, oh, I see your company is doing well, you guys must be so excited and so happy. And she was nonplussed, because according, in her words, the cashier was like, look, it's good for them at the top, but for us at the bottom, it doesn't filter through. We're struggling to make ends meet day to day. That there is a brand disconnect. For all the money that would be pumped into your marketing and promotional activities and your advertising and so forth, if at the shop front the customer is engaging with an unhappy employee, that undoes all the work that you're doing when you're brand building, because that's a more direct engagement, and it gives somebody a more direct insight into how your company is operating. So you need to understand that employees are very important custodians of your brand, and if you are letting your employees be dissatisfied with how your company operates, with the brand itself, that's going to filter through into your company, and you're going to start seeing the negative impact on your bottom line. So understand employees are important. The trust, again, any relationship is built on trust, and like we said, the relationship is at the center of what you're doing as your brand building to connect with your audiences. So ensure that everything that you're doing creates a trustworthy environment for your customers to do business with you. You want to be known by them, you want to be liked by them, but more importantly, you want them to trust you. So cultivate that trust and ensure everything you're doing as a brand cultivates that trust. And if you do have a positive brand relationship, that's a competitive advantage, because no matter who else is in your space, who else is competing with you, there is positivity around the relationship, and the relationship will trump any new entrant or anyone cutting their prices or offering a discount, because the customer will value and trust you to deliver the service that you say you will deliver. So that relationship then becomes a competitive advantage for you against your competitors, which is one of the most important aspects and benefits of branding. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to look into the marketing funnel briefly. Why this is so is, regardless of any business you're in, whether you're a personal brand, whether you're a corporate brand, whether you're a small business, regardless, all of us are essentially marketing ourselves. I wrote marketing funnel here, but you could also think of it as a sales funnel. Ultimately, because marketing and sales are two sides of the same coin. Usually, in most organizations, marketing will be responsible for the top two, sales will be responsible for the last two. So they feed into each other. But for now, we'll just call it the marketing funnel. And what we want you to think through is, as you put your brand out there, you need to understand that not all communications or interactions with the customer are the same, because not all customers are the same. Some are more advanced in their buying cycle, some have already interacted with your brand before, some are at purchase decision, some are just finding out about you and your solution. So not all brand communications are made the same, and you need to understand at which stage you're communicating with the customer and how you're moving them down the funnel to create the sale. Others will say the marketing funnel is redundant. I've heard those conversations before, that now they're more concentric circles of the buying stages of a customer, because essentially, because of the digital world, the way a customer comes to you as a business has changed. So before, they would find out about you through the messaging you put out one way, and then they'll interact with you. But now they do their own research online, find out what other solutions are out there. So by the time they get in touch with you, they're already informed about what's in the market. So you need to think through those things. But I feel the basic reasoning and structure of a marketing funnel is important for everybody to put in their minds, because essentially, in as much as the path might change in a way, the basic structure is still the same. People still need to find out about you, become aware of who you are, and they're still suspects at the time. And then once they have, you need to generate that interest in them, in their solution, in the solution that you're providing, and that interest turns them into a prospect. So you want to think through, how are people finding out about my brand? What touch points are they interacting with? What kind of content do we put out so people can find out more about who we are and generate that interest? That interest then begins that cultivation of a relation between you and the prospect to try to turn them into a lead. A lead is then now coming to, okay, I understand this is who you are. I understand this is what you do. I'm interested in the way you say you deliver it. Can I find out more? Now you're having a conversation. They're a lead. You're now thinking through, okay, this is the specifics of how we differ in how we deliver the solution to you as a potential client of ours, a lead, and you want them ultimately to make the decision and take the action to become your customer. There's also what they say then post-action, which refers to customer loyalty and also referrals. This is a simplified version of it, of course. But again, you want to think through the various steps. How are people finding out about you? How are you generating that interest so they move from just knowing about you to wanting to know more about what you offer? Then to consider you when they want a solution in whatever industry you working in. Then you want them to become your customer and to refer you to others. So for any brand, you need to think through, where are my awareness touch points? How am I cultivating or generating that interest? How am I nurturing my leads as they're walking through their decision stages to decide, okay, what's the right solution for me? And you want your brand to be considered in that, and then ultimately for them to become your customer. So we're going to get into a sample plan. It could be a sample brand marketing plan or a sample marketing plan, depending on how you want to look at it. But just to give you an idea of some of the elements you need to think through as the more specific elements and details that deliver and cultivate the brand customer relationship. So you want a bio or media kit which summarizes who you are and what you represent and what you do. If you're a personal brand or even a small business, you'd have a company profile, something, say for example, if the media reach out for an interview or somebody wants to find out more about you, there should be a resource, a document, something that succinctly, nicely presented, communicates quickly what your brand is about. So a bio media kit / company profile is important. You want to think through the content that you're creating, video, text, image, what kind of content, what content is your audience interested in, how are you delivering that content to them, when, so you need a content plan as part of your marketing plan. You want to think through the paid, earned, and owed media. So what channels are you putting out this content through? What channels, because again, digital, in as much as you can do a lot of things to get that organic reach and contact with your audience, you do need to have a budget for, say, your search ads or your social media ads, because certain platforms are now becoming pay to play. So think through what kind of paid media you can put your content out on, what budgets you can have for that. What kind of earned media, so when you put out social media content, are other people sharing it, are other people commenting on it? So how can you earn more, a wider reach by giving people content that they will consume, not only consume, but that they will search with others. Owned media, so think about aspects like your website, in terms of what assets do you own that you can create touch points and communications with your audience, website, email, newsletters, that sort of thing. Because again, if you're relying on platforms that other people own, should something happen to those platforms, you lose your touch point and you lose the audience that you developed on it. So it's always wise to try and cultivate your own owned media that you can then funnel customers to, that in case other media that you're using as touch points or outposts, should anything happen to those media. Social media, again, can fall under paid and owned, maybe not owned, but paid and earned. So you also want to think through the social media platforms, the kind of audience you're connecting with, and the kind of conversations and engagement that you're creating on your social media platforms. Your website, as an owned media, own your domain, hashtag own your domain. So if you're a blogger, if you're a brand personality, have a domain with your name that ties in with what your brand name is. So when people interact with your brand, there's a consistency across the brand. You want to look at your SEO. Again, search is still the predominant online activity, regardless of what's happening currently. So people are still using a lot of search to navigate their way around the internet and to find things that they want or need. So you need to ensure that you are findable on the search engines, especially the main search engine. So search engine optimization is critical. Your paid ads can fall under your paid media. We spoke about that. Your PR can encompass not just media outreach in terms of looking for interviews, sending press releases and so forth, but also even your corporate social responsibility if you're a corporate or a small business, or your community engagement activities if you're a personal brand. Those are things that can not only gain new media, but can also help cultivate deeper connections with the communities that are in your target audience or target market. Social listening is important now because people are sharing their views or opinions on various things on the internet. So social media isn't just a tool to send out messaging, but it's a tool for engagement and conversation. So you also want to listen to what your target audience is saying. How are they describing their problems? What content do they want? How do they want it delivered to them? What kind of solutions would they prefer, and how do they want those solutions delivered to them? All these things are available online. As a brand, take time to listen to your audience, take time to understand what they need so you can deliver your solution appropriately, and establish a very two-way solid relationship with your brand, with your target audience. Networking is another aspect of a sample marketing plan. Networking is a great way to extend the brand reach, cultivate viable and positive brand partnerships. So you need to look at not just networking offline, but networking online. There's so many online platforms now. I'm in one, Africa Tweet Chat, for digital marketers across Africa. It's a very important resource for me to network with my peers in digital marketing, not only as resources, but also as teachers, people who I learn from on the various aspects of digital. There's always room to learn regardless of what industry you're in. And for me, that network, it's a digital network. We haven't met in person with any of the people we're in the group with, but we've cultivated business relationships, we've cultivated events together, and we're learning from each other on a day-to-day basis. So you need to also look at what networks are you in and how you can target and expose your brand to networks that will help advance your brand and even elevate your brand. Next slide. So, well, technology is not always your friend, but the next slide is about top tips. And it's wrong with it. Should I carry on?
Yeah, you can wait and then we'll just start.
Just start from there. Yeah.
It won't even exit, so why would it escape?
Hello, laptop.
I need to put some keys.
Right? What is this?
It's done.
It's like,
We're done now.
yeah, like, dude, I'm done with this. Poor man.
Ah, there you
My task manager worked.
It worked-ish.
Yeah, worked-ish. Very poor. Did they have to, like, shut down?
Digital marketers now have information.
Eh?
If you're digital marketer, don't digital things that work.
Yeah. Did they phone you?
Does it connect to your phone?
My phone does not have a thingy port. How was Nicolina connecting hers to a phone? I guess she did it this way. You use this to connect to the phone and in the USB.
Yeah. That's what I'm Jesus.
We're back. Wow. Final push. Let go. Okay, resume. Okay, so our next slide is on top tips. So these are just some top tips on the various key aspects of a brand and things for you to think through when you're trying to cultivate what your brand will represent. Authenticity is important. When you think through what is unique about your brand, I know in the previous slide there was something about the unique value proposition of your brand. What makes your brand unique from other offerings in the industry? You want to be authentic. You can't, or you can really, but it's a recipe for disaster if you present yourself in a way that you can't. That's not real to what you encompass, and that will probably not be sustainable. So you want to ensure whatever brand values you communicate are values that really matter to you. If you're saying you're a health conscious brand, then you need to really be health conscious as a brand, as people in the brand, and that must matter to you, because at some point, if you're just doing it to generate sales and pretending so you can create a connection with an audience that is health conscious, sooner or later you will get caught, and your lack of authenticity will filter through. So be an authentic brand and make sure you communicate and its true values and personalities that really hold true for what the brand is and who you really are. You want to think about your storytelling. Stories are important because they cultivate emotional connections with your audience. Think about what was the biggest ad of the year last year with Colin Kaepernick, the Nike ad, showcasing various athletes who have overcome amazing obstacles and are not letting did not let any obstacle or any impediment to their route to success slow them down. Nike is a sports brand, mostly selling apparel, so you might not see the connection between athletes overcoming obstacles and where Nike fits in, but for them, it's something that ties in with their brand, the stories they're telling, the athletes that wear the apparel, and even you as a customer of Nike who wants to buy the apparel, you want to also feel like you can overcome any obstacles that are in your way. So that kind of storytelling creates that emotional connection between Nike and its audience, and you'll see why adverts like that can actually have an impact on the bottom line, as in the case of that Colin Kaepernick advert. Micro moments. Nowadays, people are living on their mobile devices. I know I get a lot of schlep for that because people say I'm always on my device, which is true. So what you need to understand now is how people are consuming content, the behaviors that people are, the digital behaviors that people are now following. There's a lot of reports on that, but even for you as a brand, look through the analytics of your site, understand when people are coming online. So you find instead of people being online for long stretches, now it's a series of micro moments. So I can come onto, for example, a platform like WhatsApp. I can come onto WhatsApp 15 to 20 times a day for 3 minutes at a time. So those micro moments, you as a brand need to understand how you are delivering messages to cultivate that relationship in those micro moments. Sometimes it might need bite-sized, shorter content. It might need more video, visual, based content. Understand the micro moments that your target audience are going through, so you can be there at relevant times with the relevant content that will help them cultivate their relationship with you. Besides the micro moments, you also want to look at mobile. Again, a lot of people here in Zim, I've noticed for a lot of sites, mobile, when they think, for example, making a website, a lot will pay attention to the desktop version of the site and then have the mobile version as an afterthought. And yet most people in Zimbabwe are accessing their internet via mobile. So in essence, it should be the other way around. You should consider making firstly a mobile site and then look into how it would look on desktop, because more than 70% of us are accessing our internet on using mobile data. So again, understand that mobile is increasingly becoming the predominant way people are accessing their digital media and their digital content, and also think into how your content or your touch points are optimized for mobile. You also want to look into integrated campaigns. So in as much as this is the digital and social media week, and we're sprouting the benefits of digital from the high roofs and across the seas, it's important to also realize digital is just but one aspect of your overall marketing plan. So you need to think in terms of integrated campaigns. Your brand does not only exist online, it exists offline. So you want to make sure that your campaigns are integrated and they do consider both offline and online activities, and also consistency in how people engage and interact with your brand online and offline. Relationship marketing is at the core of what we're discussing. Like I made mention, the most important thing is how you're developing and cultivating relationships with your audience. So in essence, think through that in terms of relationships. How am I developing, cultivating, nurturing relationships with my target audience to ensure that they become customers and long-term customers at that? Last slide. So the last slide is some case studies of personal and corporate brands or business brands that I think or feel are doing well in terms of their branding, in terms of cultivating the relationships with their audience, in terms of delivering content that entertains and develops that emotional connection with their audience. We will have a resource at the end of the week where we'll put through a lot of these case studies into a case study PDF that you can download. So there'll be more details on why I think every single one of these brands is doing well and what they're doing well at. But these are some of the case studies that I will expand on. So for personal brands, I like Ray Vines, the comedian from Zim. Miss Red is now what would be classed a media personality, a fully fledged media personality, and one of the biggest female media personalities coming out of Zim. Jackie Ngarande, another media personality. What I like about her is she's been able to segue from a perception of being a slay queen to now where her platform is more of an entertainment hub. She shares, she's playing the role of a talk show host / agony aunt, and there's a lot of engagement on her Facebook page. So I like the way she's transitioning her brand and the effectiveness of what she's doing, because if you go on the page, you'll see that the engagement levels are through the roof. Janet Machuka, who is the speaker coming up later this afternoon, she is a digital storyteller, an influencer from Kenya, and everything about what she does feeds into the fact that digital is what her world revolves around. Her posts, the events she gets involved in, the work that she does, the brand she collaborates with, everything is in sync and consistent with what she wants to communicate as a digital marketing practitioner. So for me, that she is one of the powerhouse brands in Africa, not just in Kenya. Mash Startups is a brother of mine from South Africa, who is all about startups, all about the startup ecosystem. Again, there's a consistency in the branding, in what he communicates, in the content that he shares, and the resources that he makes available to us as entrepreneurs. And that kind of brand connection, for me, is something that sets the tone for how other brands, personal brands, can establish themselves, not just in their local surroundings, but also across the continent or globally. There's another one I wanted to put there, Lebo Lion, who does entrepreneurship and marketing podcast. But again, for her, she's also aligning with entrepreneurship, marketing, social media, and everything she does, all the content she pushes, all the interactions and engagements that she's cultivating through her social media is consistently pushing that brand narrative. So these are some of the personal brands that I like. In terms of organizations, recently I lost my uncle. Why Nyaradzo is there? Nyaradzo is a funeral service provider here in Zimbabwe. And for me, not so much their digital presence, but there's a consistency in brand, because for them, they propagate that the brand is about service. And the level of service that we received as we dealt with them throughout the funeral, for me, was top level, and really communicates that service is at the core of who they are at a brand. From any person you interact with in the organization, be they front of office, be they one of the drivers, one of the guys helping you at the gravesite, everybody puts you as the customer at the center of what they're doing. Even the value adds that are put when you're holding the funeral, you can tell that these are people who think through what the customer will need and try to be there to provide that in your time of need. So for me, Nyarato is a powerhouse brand where service is communicated through every touch point that you interact with. Design Essentials, if you notice on the earlier slide about branding, it was out there. Again, it's a global brand looking to facilitate us to both men and women to look after our hair, but there's the way in which they use influencers at the center of their customer-facing engagement, and also their customer and relationship development. And influencers are a core part of that. So you notice how globally in all the countries they're in, they put influencers front and center. So the relations they cultivate, and also having those influencers be the interface between the brand and the final consumer, also then helps make the brand more tangible, more customized to the customer, because they can ask someone in their locale using the product how to better use the product, where it's available, and so forth. So for me, that's another brand doing it well. And then lastly, the ATC, I mentioned the fact that I'm part of the Africa Tree Chat group, but it's more than just a group. It's a Twitter chat that happens every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m., that's Central African time. And it's become a hub for digital marketers, not just in Africa, but across the world, or people interested in digital marketing, to come together and discuss weekly, share ideas, share knowledge, and just converse about the world of digital marketing. The consistency, again, in how the brand has made itself an ecosystem of digital marketing. Now with the ATC Academy that's coming, where people will be able to learn about digital marketing through the academy. And also further than that, now in-person events which were launched last month, where you can now come and have the ATC Twitter experience, but in person. Speaks to a brand understanding what its core is, what value it's offering its clientele, and then how all that ties into what the brand will offer you as the end user. So that is the end of my presentation. If you want to find out more, you have any questions, there'll be a Twitter chat this evening with me from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Me and Janet Machuka actually will both be available from 7 to 8 using the hashtag DSM Week, or you follow the Twitter account at Zim Digital, and we can converse about the presentation I just gave. Janet will be sharing a presentation on the complete guide to influencer marketing in Africa. So we'll be able to have a conversation about both aspects, the branding and the influencer marketing aspect tonight. So do join us for that. You can follow me on Twitter at WayneUDutch and find out, send me your questions, comments, let me know what you thought about the presentation, or if you generally want to touch base and get more information about some of the aspects that I might have brushed over because of the limited time frame that I actually went over by quite a while. But anyway, knowledge is knowledge, and we're happy to share it. Other than that, thank you so much, and thank you for tuning in, and look forward to connecting with you all as Digital and Social Media Week continues. Cheers.